Her ex cornered her in a crowded restaurant. In desperation, she hid under a stranger's table and whispered, "Please, pretend I'm yours." The stranger looked down at her with cold, dark eyes and smiled. He was the Mafia boss everyone feared, and he just claimed her in front of everyone. Lena's heels clicked against wet pavement as she ran, her breath coming in sharp bursts that burned her lungs. Behind her, Derek's voice cut through the Chicago night like a blade. "You can't hide from me, Lena. You're mine." She didn't look back. Looking back was how he always caught her, with those eyes that used to promise love, but now only held rage. Her phone was dead, her apartment key lost somewhere in the struggle, and the cold October air bit through her thin jacket. Just keep running. Find people. Find lights. Find anywhere but here. The downtown district blazed ahead, restaurants, bars, people in expensive coats laughing over wine. Safety in numbers. She pushed harder, ignoring the blister forming on her heel, ignoring the curious glances from couples on the sidewalk. Derek's footsteps pounded closer. He'd brought friends this time. She could hear at least 2 other sets of boots slapping the concrete. 3 against 1. Like always, he needed backup to feel like a man. A restaurant appeared on her right. Aurelio's, the name glowing in elegant gold script. Through the windows, she saw white tablecloths, crystal glasses, men in suits. The kind of place Derek could never afford, which meant maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't follow her inside. She burst through the door. The maitre d' stepped forward, his professional smile faltering. "Miss, do you have a—" "Please," the word came out broken. "Please, he's right behind me." The man's eyes shifted to the window where Derek's face appeared, twisted with fury. Understanding flickered across the maitre d's features, but before he could respond, Derek shoved the door open. "Lena, outside." Now, Derek's voice was deceptively calm, the voice he used right before things got ugly. His 2 friends flanked him, hands in their jacket pockets. Tony and Marcus, she recognized them. Construction guys Derek drank with. Guys who thought hitting women was just keeping them in line. Lena backed away, scanning the restaurant. Most diners kept eating, practiced in the art of urban indifference. But toward the back, in a semicircular booth that commanded the entire room, sat 3 men who weren't ignoring anything. The man in the center held himself like a king surveying his kingdom. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and cold intelligence. His suit probably cost more than Lena's car. He watched the commotion with the detached interest of someone analyzing a chess move. Across from him sat another man, older, with silver threading through his black hair and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. They'd been deep in conversation, but now both watched Derek's approach with a kind of stillness that predators have before they strike. Lena's survival instinct screamed. These weren't normal men. Everything about them. The way other diners gave their table a wide berth, the hulking bodyguards standing near the kitchen door, the intensity of their focus, screamed danger. But Derek was a known danger. And right now, she'd take her chances with the devil she didn't know. She ran. Not toward the exit. Not toward the kitchen. Toward them. Derek lunged for her, his fingers grazing her jacket, but she was already sliding. The ridiculous action movie move she'd only seen in films, but desperation made her bold. She dropped to the floor and slid right under the table, between the dark-haired man's legs, pressing herself against his shins like a child hiding from a monster. The entire restaurant went silent. "Please," she whispered, tilting her head back to meet eyes so dark they looked black in the dim light. "Please pretend I'm yours." Time stopped. The man stared down at her with an expression she couldn't read. Then, slowly, a smile curved his lips, not kind, not warm, but amused in the way a cat might be amused by a mouse doing something unexpected. "Well," he said, his voice like aged whiskey, smooth and dangerous. "This is new." Derek reached the table, Tony and Marcus behind him. "That's my girlfriend. She's having an episode. Just let me." "Your girlfriend," The dark-haired man didn't raise his voice, didn't move, but somehow the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Is that so? Yeah, we just had a fight. You know how women get emotional. I don't, actually. He took a slow sip of his wine, his hand dropping casually to where Lena crouched. His fingers brushed her hair, a claiming gesture so subtle, yet so absolute that Lena felt it in her bones. Because the women in my life know better than to run from me. Don't you, Kara? The Italian endearment rolled off his tongue like silk. Lena's heart hammered, but she understood the script he was writing. Yes, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Derek's face reddened. Listen, I don't know who you think you are. I know exactly who I am. The man set down his wine glass with deliberate care. The question is, do you know who I am? The older man across the table leaned back, and Lena caught the glint of amusement in his scarred face. The bodyguard by the kitchen shifted his stance. Derek hesitated. Tony whispered something urgent in his ear. Because, the dark-haired man continued, his hand still resting possessively on Lena's head, I'm trying to have a civilized dinner meeting. And you've interrupted it. You've upset my companion. And frankly, you're starting to bore me. Those three things together? Never a good combination. The threat lay underneath his words like a shark beneath calm water. Derek must have felt it because he took a step back. This isn't over, Lena, Derek spat. I believe it is, the man's smile never wavered. In fact, I believe you were just leaving. All three of you. And if I were you, I'd make sure our paths never cross again. I'm particular about people who touch what's mine. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and stalked out. Tony and Marcus scrambled after him. The restaurant slowly resumed its ambient noise, glasses clinking, soft conversations, jazz playing from hidden speakers. But the tension at the table remained thick. You can come out now, the dark-haired man said, his voice losing none of its edge. Though I admit, I'm curious what you thought would happen next. Lena crawled out from under the table, her legs shaking, and found herself face to face with a man who looked both amused and calculating. Thank you, she breathed. I'm so sorry, Damien Russo, the scarred man interrupted, his eyes sharp. Do you have any idea who you just involved in your domestic dispute? The name hit her like cold water. Russo. Oh God. She'd just hidden between the legs of Chicago's most notorious Mafia boss. Lena's face went white. I should go. Sit. Damien's voice wasn't loud, but it left no room for argument. He gestured to the empty space beside him in the booth. The scarred man, Vince, she realized with growing horror, watched her with renewed interest. His eyes traveled from her disheveled hair to her torn jacket, then back to Damien. A slow smile spread across his face. Well, Damien Russo with a girlfriend. I didn't see that coming. Life's full of surprises, Damien replied smoothly, his hand settling on the small of Lena's back as she slid into the booth beside him. The touch felt like a brand through her thin jacket. A stocky man in a gray suit appeared at the table's edge. Hard eyes, calculating expression, maybe 50. Boss, we should continue our discussion, Marco. Damien cut him off. My consigliere worries too much, he added to Vince, but Lena caught the warning look Marco shot her way. Another man approached from the bar, younger, maybe early 30s, with slicked-back hair and a phone in his hand. He leaned close to Damien's ear, whispering something while his eyes stayed locked on Lena. When he straightened, his expression was carefully blank. My second Rico, Damien introduced casually. He's already running a background check on you, Kara. Standard procedure. You understand. Lena's stomach dropped. A background check would show everything. Her arrests for assaulting Derek when she'd fought back, the restraining order she'd filed that the judge denied, the 2 jobs she'd lost because Derek showed up causing scenes. So, Vince leaned back, swirling his wine. Where were we before the interruption? Yes. The distribution routes through the port. The territory stays neutral, Damien said, his attention shifting fully to business. Your people, my people, Everyone gets their slice. No more turf wars scaring off legitimate business. Generous, Vince's tone suggested he thought the opposite. What's changed, Russo? 2 months ago, you wanted exclusive control. Damien's thumb traced idle circles on Lena's back, a gesture that looked casual but made her hyper-aware of every nerve ending. 2 months ago, the feds weren't breathing down all our necks.
Times change.
We adapt. Or we get distracted. Vince's eyes flicked to Lena. New relationships can make a man soft. The air thickened. Marco stiffened. Rico's hand moved subtly toward his jacket. Damien smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression Lena had ever seen. Soft enough to negotiate. Hard enough to end this conversation permanently if you bore me. Your choice. The two men stared at each other across the table, an entire war being fought in silence. Finally, Vince laughed.
Fine.
Neutral territory. But I want monthly audits. Sir, Rico had returned, his phone screen glowing. He showed it to Damien, whose jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Problem? Vince asked too casually. Just business. Damien's hand left Lena's back. It seems my companion's ex-boyfriend has filed a police report. Theft of his property. A watch. Apparently, he turned to Lena. Did you steal a watch?
What? No.
I don't have anything of his. I believe you. Damien's voice was calm, but his eyes held a cold fury. Which means he's trying to force the cops to bring you back to him. Creative, if predictable. Marco swore under his breath. Boss, police involvement. Is Derek being clever? Vince interrupted, his interest clearly piqued. Using the system against you. If the cops come, if there's a scene, our deal here gets complicated. Your association with a wanted woman, even for something petty, raises questions. Creates exposure, he smiled. Maybe I should rethink our arrangement. Lena's chest constricted. This was spinning out of control. I'll just go. I'll turn myself in, explain. You'll do nothing of the sort. Damien's hand returned to her back, firmer now. You came to me for protection. I don't take that lightly. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes locked on hers. I know desperation when I see it. I know fear. And I know the look of someone who's been fighting alone for too long. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe. You're not going back to him. Sirens wailed outside. Through the window, Lena saw 2 squad cars pulling up. Derek stood on the sidewalk, pointing at the restaurant. That bastard had called them himself. Probably told them she was armed and dangerous. Well, Vince said, standing. This has been entertaining. But I think I'll let you handle your domestic situation, Russo. We'll talk when things are less complicated. Sit down, Vince. Damien didn't move. This doesn't complicate anything. In fact, it simplifies everything. 4 cops entered the restaurant, Derek trailing behind them like a smug shadow. The lead officer, a weathered man with sergeant stripes, approached their table. Evening, gentlemen. We've had a report of a stolen. There's been a misunderstanding. Sergeant Damien read his nameplate. Patterson. This is my woman. She took nothing that wasn't freely given. The sergeant's eyes widened slightly. Mr. Russo, I didn't realize you were. We still need to ask the young lady some questions. Ask me, Damien said. She's under my protection. Anything she has, I gave her. Anything she did with my blessing. Derek pushed forward. That's bullshit. She's nothing to you. Damien stood, and suddenly the booth felt too small for him. From this moment forward, if you approach her, if you call her, if you so much as think about her, you're not dealing with a frightened woman anymore. You're dealing with me. And trust me when I say, I'm considerably less forgiving. Cameras flashed outside. Someone had tipped off the press. Through the window, Lena saw reporters gathering. Sergeant Patterson looked between Damien and Derek, weighing his options. Sir, if you're claiming responsibility. I'm claiming her. Damien's arm wrapped around Lena's shoulders, pulling her against his side. Publicly. Officially. Is that clear enough, Sergeant? More flashes. More cameras. Tomorrow's headlines were writing themselves. Mafia King claims mystery woman. Lena's head spun. This couldn't be happening. She'd wanted help, not this. Not to become a pawn in whatever game Damien Russo played. But as Derek's face purpled with rage and the cops hesitated, she realized something. For the first time in 2 years, Derek was the one who looked afraid. And Damien Russo had just made her untouchable. The drive to Damien's estate took 40 minutes, though it felt like crossing into another universe. Lena sat in the back of a black SUV, Damien beside her, his phone pressed to his ear as he issued calm, clipped orders in Italian. Rico drove while Marco followed in a second vehicle. The city lights faded, replaced by sprawling suburbs with gates and long driveways. They turned onto a private road lined with oak trees, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the moon. "I didn't mean to drag you into anything," Lena said quietly when Damien finally pocketed his phone. "You didn't drag me. I chose to step in." He looked at her with those unreadable dark eyes. "Though I'm curious, why me? That restaurant had 100 people. You looked like someone Derek would be afraid of." A corner of his mouth lifted. "Smart girl." The SUV stopped before iron gates that swung open silently. Beyond them, a stone mansion rose from manicured lawns like something from a different era, all columns and arched windows, beautiful and cold. "Welcome to my home," Damien said, though his tone carried no warmth. "You'll stay here until this situation is resolved." "Resolve how?" "That depends on how smart your ex-boyfriend is." He stepped out, then offered his hand.
Come.
Inside, the house was exactly what Lena expected: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. It felt like a museum, not a home. Every surface gleamed. Every corner held shadows. A housekeeper appeared, a severe-looking woman in her 60s. "Mr. Russo, shall I prepare the guest wing?" "The blue room, Mrs. Chun. And bring something for Miss." He paused, realizing he'd never gotten her full name. "Lena Martinez. Miss Martinez to eat. She's had a difficult evening." As Mrs. Chun departed, a blur of movement caught Lena's eye. A young girl, maybe 10 or 11, stood at the top of the curved staircase, gripping the railing. She had Damien's dark hair but softer features, and her eyes were wide with curiosity. "Isabella," Damien's voice gentled in a way Lena hadn't heard before. "Come say hello." The girl descended slowly, her steps careful. When she reached them, she didn't speak. Instead, her hands moved in quick, graceful gestures. Sign language. "Who is she?" Isabella signed, her eyes darting between Damien and Lena. Damien's face tightened with frustration. He opened his mouth, clearly struggling to respond, when Lena's hands moved. "My name is Lena," she signed, her movements fluid and natural. "It's nice to meet you." Isabella's face lit up like sunrise. She signed rapidly, excitedly, her hands flying. "You know ASL. Uncle Damien tries, but he's terrible. Are you staying here? Do you like reading? I just finished this amazing book about." "Slow down," Lena signed, laughing. "One question at a time." Damien stared at them both, his expression unreadable. "You know sign language." "I worked at a school for deaf children before," she trailed off. "Before Derek got her fired by showing up drunk and screaming in the parking lot. Before. I know ASL pretty well." Isabella grabbed Lena's hand, tugging her toward the stairs. "Can you read me a story? No one here signs very well. Mrs. Chin knows some, but she's always busy, and Uncle Damien signing is like watching a robot having a seizure." Lena choked on a laugh, catching Damien's raised eyebrow. "She says you sign like a robot." She said more than that, I suspect, but there was no anger in his voice, just something softer.
Wearier.
Isabella lost her hearing from meningitis when she was 5. Her parents, my brother and his wife, died in a car accident 2 years ago. I've been trying to learn, but he made a helpless gesture, the first truly vulnerable movement she'd seen from him. "It's hard," Lena said gently, "but the fact that you try means everything to her." Isabella tugged again, insistent. "Go," Damien said. I have calls to make. Mrs. Chen will show you your room after. Lena let Isabella pull her up the stairs, down a hallway lined with family photos. Damien younger, smiling with a man who must have been his brother. Isabella as a tiny girl with her parents. A family that had been whole once. Isabella's room was the first space in the house that felt lived in. Books scattered on the floor, drawings tacked to walls, a telescope by the window. The girl pulled out a fantasy novel about dragons and handed it to Lena expectantly. They settled on the bed, and Lena began to read aloud, her voice filling the quiet room. Every few pages, Isabella would interrupt with questions and Lena would answer in sign, creating a hybrid conversation that felt natural, easy. She didn't notice Damien in the doorway until she glanced up between chapters. He stood there silently, his shoulder against the frame, watching them with an expression she couldn't name. Not cold, not calculating, something raw and unguarded that made her breath catch. Uncle Damien. Isabella signed, noticing him. Isn't Lena great? He signed something back, clumsy, imperfect, but Isabella beamed. What did you tell her? Lena asked. That she should get to sleep soon. School tomorrow, he straightened. Mrs. Chun has your room ready. I'll have some of my people collect your things from your apartment tomorrow. You don't have to. I claimed you in front of half of Chicago's underworld and the police department, he interrupted. Whether you like it or not, you're under my protection now. Which means you live here until Derek is no longer a problem. And then what? He met her eyes, and for a moment, she saw past the Mafia boss to something else. Someone who'd built walls around himself until even his own niece couldn't reach him. Someone who'd just watched a stranger do in minutes what he'd been trying to do for years. Then we'll see, he said quietly. But as he walked away, Lena realized something had shifted. She wasn't just a random woman he'd helped. She'd entered his world and changed something fundamental. And in Damien Russo's world, change was always dangerous. Rico sat in his car 2 blocks from the estate, phone pressed to his ear. The sun hadn't risen yet, painting the sky in shades of gray that matched his mood. Yeah, this is Rico. I need information on someone. He rattled off Lena's details, full name, age, last known address. Everything. Employment history, police records, known associates. And I need it by noon. He ended the call and dialed another number. This one rang 3 times before a groggy voice answered. Who the hell is this? I'm looking for Derek Martinez. Friend of his gave me this number. A pause. Who wants to know? Someone who might be able to help him get his girlfriend back. Rico kept his voice neutral. I understand she's shacked up with someone new.
Someone.
Powerful. That's gotta hurt. You have no idea. Derek's voice sharpened, awake now. Who are you? Let's just say I work for the man keeping Lena from you. And I think everyone would be better off if she went back where she belongs. Rico heard Derek's breathing quicken. When can we meet?
Soon.
Real soon. Rico hung up and stared at the estate through his windshield. Damien was getting soft. First the truce with Vince, a deal that gave away too much territory. Now this girl, this nobody who'd somehow crawled under the boss's skin overnight. Rico had worked 12 years to get to second in command. He'd killed, lied, and buried bodies to earn Damien's trust. He wasn't about to watch it all crumble, because the boss caught feelings. Vince morning. Vince's penthouse office overlooked the Chicago River, all glass and steel and power. He sipped his espresso and studied the photos his men had taken last night. Damien with his arm around the girl, cameras flashing, cops backing down. She came out of nowhere, his lieutenant said, standing at attention. No connection to any families, no criminal record beyond a few domestic calls. She's a civilian. A civilian, Damien claimed publicly. Vince tapped the photo. That's not like him. Damien Russo doesn't do impulsive. Everything's calculated. So either this girl is more important than she appears or she's a weakness. Exactly, Vince smiled. Double the surveillance on his estate. I want to know everywhere she goes, everyone she talks to. If Russo's distracted by some woman, that truce we signed? It's meaningless. He'll slip. Make mistakes, he leaned back. And when he does, we take everything. His lieutenant nodded. Already have men positioned. What about the ex-boyfriend? Keep tabs on him too. Angry ex-lovers have a way of creating useful chaos.
Derek, mid-morning.
Derek's apartment was a disaster. Empty beer cans, dirty clothes, a hole in the wall where he'd punched through the drywall last night. He sat on his stained couch, laptop open, scrolling through news articles about Damien Russo. Alleged mob boss. Suspected in 12 murders. Connections to politicians and judges. His hands shook with rage, and something else. Fear, maybe, but fear mixed with opportunity. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Derek Martinez. Who's asking? Someone from Vince Moretti's organization. We have a mutual interest in your situation. Derek sat up straighter. Vince Moretti. He knew that name. Everyone in Chicago knew it. Second most powerful crime family in the city.
I'm listening.
You work construction, right? Union jobs, city contracts.
Yeah.
What's that got to do with? Those contracts go through people we control. You hear things. See things. Names, dates, which projects Russo's people are involved in. The voice was smooth, persuasive. You help us, we help you. We can make Damien Russo's protection meaningless. We can get you access to Lena. Derek's heart pounded. When? Patience. First, we need to know what you know about Russo's operations. Construction sites, union connections, shipping schedules. Everything. Derek thought about Lena in that mansion, probably sleeping in silk sheets, playing house with a murderer. The image made his blood boil. I'll tell you everything, he said. Lena late morning. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains. For a moment, she forgot where she was, then memory crashed back.
Damien.
The restaurant. This beautiful prison. She dressed in the clothes Mrs. Chun had left, simple jeans and a sweater that fit perfectly, which meant someone had guessed her size. The thought made her uneasy. Downstairs, the house was quiet. A note on the kitchen counter read, "Make yourself at home. Isabella at school. Back by 3. D. Make herself at home. In a Mafia boss's mansion."
Right.
She wandered outside, following a stone path through gardens that looked professionally maintained. Morning dew clung to perfectly trimmed hedges. A fountain burbled somewhere nearby. It was beautiful in a sterile, controlled way, like everything in Damien's world. Past the gardens, she found a small courtyard with a bench. And there, unexpectedly, was Damien. He sat with Isabella, when had she gotten home, and his hands were moving carefully through signs. Isabella watched patiently, correcting his hand shapes, showing him again. Like this, Isabella signed slowly. Not with your fingers stiff. Relax them. Damien tried again, his movements awkward but determined. Isabella clapped when he got it right. Better. Now sign, I love you. Damien's hands moved, I love you. And even from a distance, Lena could see the emotion on his face. Not the cold Mafia boss from last night, but an uncle trying desperately to reach his niece. Isabella threw her arms around him, and Damien held her tight, his eyes closed. Lena turned to leave quietly, not wanting to intrude on the private moment, but a twig snapped under her foot. Damien's eyes opened, locking on hers. For a heartbeat, she saw everything. The love, the frustration, the fear of failing the one person who depended on him. Then the mask slid back into place. I didn't realize you were awake, he said, standing. Isabella waved excitedly. Will you have lunch with us? Isabella signed. Please? Uncle Damien is taking us to the cafe by the water. You don't have to, Lena started. It's not optional, Damien's voice was firm but not unkind. From now on, where I go, you go. It's safer that way. What he didn't say, it was also a message. To Vince, to Derek, to anyone watching. Lena wasn't just under his protection. She was his. And somewhere in the shadows, people were already planning how to use that against him. The cafe sat right on the Chicago waterfront, all glass walls and white marble, with a view of sailboats bobbing in the harbor. The kind of place where a salad cost $40 and everyone came to see and be seen. Damien's SUV pulled up front, and immediately cameras appeared. Not paparazzi. These were phones held by seemingly casual bystanders who'd been waiting. Lena recognized the setup now. This wasn't just lunch. This was theater. Smile, Damien murmured as he helped her out, his hand possessive on her lower back. We're giving them a show. Isabella emerged behind them, her school uniform replaced with a pretty blue dress. She took Lena's hand naturally, and Lena realized how this must look. Damien Rousseau with his niece and his woman. A family portrait. Inside, heads turned. Conversations paused mid-sentence. The maitre d' rushed over, practically trembling. Mr. Rousseau, your usual table is ready. They were led to a corner booth with a perfect view of both the entrance and the water. Strategic. Rico appeared from somewhere, taking a position at the bar with sight lines to their table. Two more men Lena didn't recognize flanked the entrance. Is this normal? Lena asked as they Saturday. Define normal. Damien scanned a room with practiced ease. We're here to be seen. To make a point. What point? That you're not going anywhere, he signaled the waiter. And that anyone who thinks otherwise is welcome to try changing my mind. A flash caught Lena's attention. Someone across the street with a telephoto lens. When she looked closer, she saw the man lower his camera and speak into his phone. Vince's people, Damien said, following her gaze. Right on schedule. Isabella tugged Lena's sleeve, signing. Why is everyone staring at us? Because your uncle is important, Lena signed back. People always watch important people. Is that why you're scared? Isabella's young face was too perceptive. I'm not scared. Lena forced a smile.
Just.
Adjusting. Isabella studied her for a moment, then signed. Uncle Damien won't let anyone hurt you. He's scary, but he's good. The simple faith in those words made Lena's throat tight. Their food arrived, elaborate dishes that Lena barely tasted. She was too aware of being watched, of the weight of whatever game Damien was playing. Halfway through the meal, her unease proved justified. The cafe door opened, and three men in expensive suits walked in. The lead man was tall, with iron-gray hair and the bearing of someone used to commanding rooms. Behind him, two younger men surveyed the space like predators. Damien's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Vince's lieutenants, he said quietly. And that's Michael Costa, his consigliera. This is no coincidence. Costa's eyes found their table, and a cold smile crossed his face. He spoke to the maitre d', who nervously gestured to a table directly in Damien's line of sight. Costa nodded and sat, never breaking eye contact. Is this a problem? Lena whispered. It's a test, Damien set down his fork with deliberate calm. They want to see if you rattle me. If having you here makes me vulnerable. Does it? His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. That depends. On what? On whether you run. Before she could respond, a familiar figure appeared in the cafe window. Derek, standing across the street, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, staring directly at her. Even from here, she could see the rage on his face. Her breath caught. Damien. I see him. Damien's voice was ice. He didn't even turn his head.
Rico.
Rico was already moving, speaking into his phone. Within seconds, two of their men exited the cafe, heading toward Derek's position. Derek saw them coming and bolted. He won't get far, Damien said. I have people on every corner of this block. You knew he'd come. I counted on it. Damien took a sip of his espresso. Derek, Vince's people, all of them, they needed to see that you're protected. That threatening you means threatening me, he glanced at Costa's table. And that I don't flinch. Isabella, oblivious to the undercurrents, showed Lena a drawing she'd made at school, a stick figure family, herself, Damien, and now, surprisingly, Lena. That's us, Isabella signed proudly. Lena's heart twisted. This little girl had no idea she was being used as a prop in a dangerous game. Or maybe she did know, and she was just desperate for any semblance of family. A man approached their table, stocky, late 40s, with a cop's walk. He nodded to Damien with false friendliness.
Russo.
Nice to see you out with your family. Officer Martinez. Damien's smile was sharp. I didn't know you frequented establishments outside your pay grade. The cop's smile faltered. Just happened to be in the neighborhood. Interesting. Because I'm fairly certain you're usually in Derek Martinez's neighborhood. Any relation? The cop's face reddened. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Alex. I'm stating facts. Damien leaned back. You're on Derek's peril. You've helped him dodge 2 assault charges. And now you're here, reporting to Vince's people. He gestured casually to Costa's table. You left Michael's table 2 minutes ago. Did you get your envelope already? Or do you collect later? Alex's hand moved toward his belt, his gun then froze. Every one of Damien's men had shifted position, hands inside their jackets. I'd think carefully about your next move, Damien said softly. A dirty cop pulling a weapon on a man having lunch with his niece? That's a career-ending headline. Possibly a life-ending 1-inch. Alex's hand dropped. This isn't over. It is actually. Tell Derek if he comes within 100 yards of Lena again, corrupt cops won't be able to help him. Tell Vince his intimidation tactics are juvenile. And tell yourself that next time you take money to harass civilians, you might want to check who they're connected to first. Alex stalked out, his face purple. Costa stood from his table, buttoning his jacket. He walked over, stopping at their booth with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Russo. Quite the scene you're making. Just a family lunch, Michael. Nothing more. Of course, Costa's eyes slid to Lena. Miss Martinez, isn't it? You've certainly landed on your feet. From running in the streets to dining with Chicago's finest, the emphasis on finest was mocking. She dines where I dine, Damien said flatly. Was there something you wanted? Just to deliver a message from Mr. Moretti. He's concerned about the complications surrounding your new relationship. Wonders if it might affect our recent arrangement. Tell Vince nothing affects our arrangement except his inability to honor it. Costa's smile widened. We'll see, he nodded to Isabella. Enjoy your lunch. As he left, Lena realized she'd been holding her breath. Welcome to my world, Damien said quietly. Still think hiding under my table was a good idea? Lena watched the boats in the harbor, the water sparkling in the sunlight, and thought about the darkness beneath those pretty surfaces. Ask me tomorrow, she said. Damien laughed, a real laugh, brief, but genuine. Fair enough. But as they left the cafe, cameras flashing, enemies watching, Lena knew tomorrow might bring answers she wasn't ready for. The construction site squatted on the south side like a half-formed skeleton, steel beams jutting into the gray afternoon sky, concrete mixer silent, scaffolding wrapped in plastic tarps that snapped in the wind. The sign out front promised luxury condos by spring, but everyone who worked the site knew it was a front for money laundering. Union jobs that paid twice the going rate and asked no questions. Derek's boots crunched on gravel as he made his way past the unmanned security gate. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets, touching the flask of whiskey he'd been nursing since dawn. The cafe incident had left him humiliated, again. Russo's men had chased him 6 blocks before he'd lost them in an alley. But he'd made his calls. And now he was here. Martinez. A voice echoed from inside the skeletal structure. Derek climbed the concrete stairs to the 3rd floor, no walls yet, just support columns and the city sprawling beyond. A man waited there, late 30s, expensive leather jacket over construction dusty jeans. Tony Giordano, one of Vince Moretti's lieutenants. Derek had met him twice before at union meetings where business got discussed in back rooms. You're late, Tony said, lighting a cigarette. How to make sure I wasn't followed, Derek glanced around. This place secure? Secure as it gets. We own the union rep, the foreman, and half the city inspectors. Tony exhaled smoke. Now, you said you have information about Russo. Talk. Derek pulled out his flask, took a long drink. First, we need to discuss terms. What do I get for this? Tony's eyes narrowed. You get Vince's organization behind you. That's not enough. I want guarantees. I want Lena back. I want... Derek's voice cracked. She's mine. Russo can't just take what's mine. She ran from you, from what I hear. Hid under his table, like you were going to kill her. I never. Derek stopped, forced calm into his voice. She overreacts.
Gets dramatic.
But we belong together. Everyone knows it. Tony studied him with the cold assessment of someone who dealt in human commodities. Russo claimed her publicly. Taking her back won't be easy. That's why I need Vince. Russo's powerful, but Moretti's got reach too, right? Political connections, judges. We have what we need, Tony flicked ash. What we need from you is intel.
You work these sites.
Union jobs, city contracts. Russo's people are embedded in every project on the north side. We know it, but we need specifics. Names, dates, which projects are fronts for his money, which inspectors he owns. Documentation, if you can get it. Derek's mind raced. He'd worked construction for 8 years, bouncing between union jobs. He'd heard things, seen things, foremen who answered to family associates, shipments that came at night, cash payments in manila envelopes. He'd never paid much attention because keeping his head down kept him employed.
But now...
The Riverwalk project, Derek said slowly. That's all Russo money. The permits got pushed through in 2 weeks, normally takes 6 months. The union rep who signed off is Frank Delgado. He's on Russo's payroll, everyone knows it. Tony's eyes sharpened. What else? The Port Authority expansion. Those warehouse contracts? Half went to shell companies Russo controls. I've seen the invoices. My crew supervisor is sloppy. Leave stuff lying around. Derek gained confidence. I can get you copies. Dates, amounts, which city councilman approved the contracts. Now we're talking. Tony pulled out his phone. Type something. Vince needs ammunition against Russo. Political pressure, legal exposure, anything that makes him vulnerable. The truce between our families is temporary. When it breaks, and it will, we need to hit him from every angle. And in exchange, we help you with your Lena problem. Tony smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. Russo's protection only works if he's strong. If he's distracted, dealing with federal investigations, watching his legitimate businesses crumble, he gets sloppy.
Weak.
And weak men can't protect their toys.
She's not a toy, Derek snapped.
We were together 3 years. She wore my ring. She was going to marry me. Until she ran. Because she got confused. Those women at her work, they filled her head with feminist bullshit about boundaries and abuse. Derek's voice rose. I never hit her that hard. A slap here and there when she got mouthy, that's normal. My old man did the same to my mom. They were married 40 years. Tony's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes.
Right.
Well, whatever your relationship issues, they work in our favor. You keep feeding us information about Russo's operations. We make sure you're protected. We'll even put you on the payroll, foreman position, triple your current rate. Derek's heart leaped. Foreman. You're useful now. That comes with perks. Tony stubbed out his cigarette. But understand something, you work for us now. Not Russo's unions, not your own interests.
Us.
You do what we say, when we say it. That includes keeping your distance from Lena until we tell you otherwise. But you said... I said we'd help you get her back. I didn't say, when Tony's voice hardened. Right now, her being with Russo is useful. It distracts him, makes him emotional. Emotional men make mistakes. When the time is right, when Russo's too busy dealing with collapsed construction permits and federal subpoenas, then you can have your girlfriend back. Derek wanted to argue, but Tony's expression left no room for negotiation. This was the deal. Take it or leave it. Fine, he muttered. How do I contact you? Tony handed him a burner phone. This number only. You see something relevant, you call. Every Monday, you report what you've learned that week. Miss a report and you're done. Try to play both sides, and Tony gestured to the empty construction site, the 3-story drop to concrete below. Accidents happen on job sites every day. The threat was clear. I understand. Good. Tony started toward the stairs, then paused. One more thing. That cop who's been helping you, Alex Martinez, your cousin, he's ours now too. Vince has him feeding information. So, if you're thinking about warning Russo or playing hero, know that we'll find out. Derek's stomach sank. Alex had been his ace in the hole, his way of keeping tabs on police movements. Now, even that was compromised. He was alone. Completely alone. Except for Vince Moretti's organization, which would chew him up and spit him out the moment he stopped being useful. As Tony disappeared down the stairs, Derek walked to the edge of the floor, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Lena was in Russo's mansion, probably laughing with that deaf kid, playing happy family.
She thought she was safe.
But Derek had just sold information that would bring Damien Russo's empire crashing down. And when it did, when Russo was too weak to protect her anymore, Derek would take back what belonged to him. He took another drink from his flask and smiled. This was just the beginning. Evenings settled over the estate like a held breath. Lena sat cross-legged on Isabella's bedroom floor, surrounded by poster board, markers, and printed photos of the solar system. Isabella's science project was due Friday, and she'd chosen to build a model of the planets with accompanying facts in both English and ASL. Mars is my favorite, Isabella signed, carefully gluing red construction paper to a styrofoam ball. Because it's angry-looking but also lonely. Why lonely?
Lena signed back.
Because it's so far from Earth. Like me sometimes. Isabella's hands moved slower, more carefully. Before you came, I was the only one here who signed. Uncle Damien tries, but it's hard for him. Mrs. Chun knows a little. But mostly I'm just
quiet.
Lena's chest tightened. You're not alone anymore. Isabella looked up, her eyes bright. Promise. The word hung between them, heavy with hope. Lena knew she shouldn't make promises she couldn't keep. She was here temporarily, until Derek stopped being a threat, until Damien decided she was more trouble than she was worth. But looking at this little girl who'd lost her parents and her hearing, who lived in this beautiful prison with an uncle who loved her but didn't know how to reach her, Lena couldn't say no.
Promise, she signed.
They worked in comfortable silence, Isabella humming tunelessly while Lena helped paint Jupiter's swirling storms. The normalcy of it felt surreal. 2 days ago, she'd been running for her life. Now she was doing homework with a Mafia boss's niece. Tell me about your family, Isabella wrote on her notebook, holding it up for Lena to read. Lena hesitated. My mom passed away when I was 17. Cancer. My dad. He wasn't really around after that. I have a sister in California, but we don't talk much. Why not? She didn't like Derek. Told me to leave him. I didn't listen, and she stopped calling. Lena set down her paintbrush. Is he really bad? Isabella's eyes were too knowing for a child. Yes, sweetie. He is. Good that Uncle Damien saved you then. He saves people sometimes. He pretends he doesn't, but he does. Before Lena could respond, she felt the shift in the air. That particular stillness that meant someone was watching. She turned to find Damien in the doorway, still in his dress shirt and slacks from earlier, tie loosened. He held a glass of whiskey and studied the scene before him, the scattered craft supplies, the laughter-warmed room, his niece's genuine smile. Something crossed his face. Longing, maybe. Or pain at seeing what he couldn't provide himself. Uncle Damien. Isabella waved him in. Come see our solar system. He entered slowly, like a man approaching sacred ground he wasn't sure he belonged on. Isabella launched into enthusiastic explanations, her hands flying, and Lena translated when his comprehension faltered. She says Saturn is the most beautiful because it has rings, but Neptune is the most mysterious because it's the farthest and coldest. Like me, Damien said quietly, his eyes on Isabella. Cold and far away. You're not cold, Isabella signed, catching enough of his words. You're just scared. His jaw tightened. I'm not, he stopped, signed clumsily. Not scared. You are, Isabella insisted. Scared of being close. like Neptune scared of the sun. The metaphor was more profound than any 10-year-old should be capable of. Damien looked at Lena, and in his eyes, she saw the truth of it. He was terrified of failing Isabella, of losing control, of letting anyone see past his armor. "She's right," Lena said softly. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. "I need to take this. Lena, stay with Isabella." He left, and through the door, Lena heard his voice drop to dangerous tones. Downstairs, Damien's study. Rico stood by the window, phone in hand, his face grave. "Boss, we have a problem." Damien poured another whiskey. "Talk." Derek Martinez met with Tony Giordano this afternoon. At the Riverwalk construction site. "One of ours." The glass paused halfway to Damien's lips. "Giordano is Vince's lieutenant."
Exactly.
"Our source inside Vince's organization says Derek's feeding them information. Union connections, construction permits, shell companies, everything he knows about our legitimate operations." "How much does he know?" "Too much. He's worked half the sites on the north side. If he has documentation, if he can prove the connections to our people," Rico's hands clenched. "Vince is building a case to bury us politically and legally. And it all started because you claimed that girl." Damien's eyes turned to ice. "Careful. I'm being honest, boss. Lena is a liability. She brings Derek. Derek brings Vince. And now our entire operation is exposed." Rico moved closer, his voice urgent. "There's a simple solution. We hand her back to Derek. Tell him she was just a momentary thing, nothing serious. Vince loses his leverage. Derek goes away. Everyone wins. Except Lena. She's not family. She's not crew. She's a random woman who hid under your table." Rico's frustration leaked through. "I've been with you 12 years. I've killed for you, lied for you, buried bodies for you. And you're risking everything we've built for a stranger?" Damien turned, and his expression made Rico step back. "That stranger," Damien said quietly, dangerously, "is under my protection. I claimed her publicly. You think I can just hand her over to an abuser and maintain respect? That shows weakness, not strength. Keeping her shows weakness. You're distracted, emotional. I'm strategic." Damien's voice cut like a blade. "Vince thinks Lena is my weakness. Let him think it. Let him focus on her while we reinforce our real assets." And Derek, his smile was cold. "Derek's about to learn that betraying me comes with consequences." Rico's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face paled. "Boss, we have movement outside. 3 cars, watching the estate. Vince's people." Damien walked to the window. Beyond the gates, in the darkness, he could make out the vehicles. Not even hiding anymore. This was a message. "We're watching. We're waiting." "Double the security," Damien ordered. "No one gets in or out without my approval." And Rico, he turned, his eyes hard. "If I hear you've contacted Derek again, if I even suspect you're considering handing Lena over, you'll discover exactly how cold Neptune can be." Rico's face went white. "I would never." "You already have. You called Derek earlier, didn't you? Suggested a meeting?" The silence confirmed it. "You're lucky you're valuable," Damien said. "But your value is declining rapidly. Get out." Rico left, and Damien stood alone in his study, surrounded by walls that suddenly felt like they were closing in. Upstairs, Lena was helping Isabella paint planets, bringing light into darkness. Outside, enemies circled like sharks smelling blood. And Damien realized with absolute clarity, everything was about to explode. The only question was whether he could protect what mattered when it did. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Damien's downtown office tower, 32 stories of steel and glass that housed Russo Enterprises, his legitimate business empire. Import-export, real estate development, private security consulting. All legal. All profitable. All carefully constructed fronts that laundered money and provided cover for the family's real operations. Lena stood at the window of Damien's executive suite, watching the city wake up below. She'd barely slept, too aware of the cars watching the estate, the tension that had thrummed through the house since Damien's study conversation. Mrs. Chun had woken her at 6 with clothes, a tailored navy dress, and heels that made her look like she belonged in this world of power and money. She didn't. Ready. Damien emerged from his private bathroom, now in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. He looked every inch the legitimate businessman, except for his eyes. Those stayed cold, calculating. Why am I here? Because leaving you at the estate with Vince's people watching is stupid. Here, you're surrounded by my security, my people in public view. He straightened his cufflinks. And because appearances matter. If the city sees you at my headquarters, entering my world, it sends a message. That I'm yours. That you're protected. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes. City councilmen, business partners, people who need reassurance that recent complications won't affect our operations. You'll stay in this office. Don't leave. Don't open the door for anyone except Marco. I'm a prisoner. You're safe. His hand cupped her face, the gesture surprisingly gentle. There's a difference. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his jaw tightened. We have company downstairs. Lobby, 10 minutes earlier. The paparazzi had started gathering at dawn, tipped off by someone, probably Vince's people, about Lena's arrival. By the time Damien's SUV pulled up to the tower's entrance, 20 photographers crowded the sidewalk, cameras ready. Mr. Russo. Mr. Russo. Is it true you're dating the woman from the restaurant? What's her name? How serious is this relationship? Damien stepped out first, his expression bored, and extended his hand to Lena. She emerged, blinking in the flash of cameras, and felt his arm wrap firmly around her waist. Is she moving in with you? Are you getting married? Damien didn't answer, just guided Lena through the gauntlet with practiced ease. But the damage was done. By the time they reached the elevator, the photos were already uploading to gossip sites. Mafia King's new queen. Damien Russo steps out with mystery woman. Chicago's most dangerous bachelor off the market. Present, executive suite. They're calling me your queen, Lena said, scrolling through her phone, a new one Marco had given her that morning. This is insane. It's strategic. Damien gathered files for his meeting. By tomorrow, every family from here to New York will know about you. That makes you untouchable. Attacking you means attacking me, and no one's ready for that war. Except Vince. Especially not Vince. He's testing boundaries, seeing how far he can push. But he won't cross certain lines. Damien paused at the door. Marco's outside. You need anything, ask him. Don't leave this office. He left, and Lena was alone in the cathedral of corporate power. She wandered the space. Mahogany desk, leather furniture, shelves lined with law books and history texts. A photo on the credenza showed young Damien with his brother, both smiling, both alive. Before the accident. Before everything changed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You look good in that dress. Like a whore playing dress-up. Derek. Her hands shook. She blocked the number, but 30 seconds later, another message from a different number. He can't protect you forever. You're still mine. And another. I'm going to enjoy reminding you who you belong to. Lena's breath came faster. How did he keep getting new numbers? How did he? A knock at the door made her jump. Miss Martinez? A woman's voice. I'm Jennifer from HR. Mr. Russo asked me to bring you coffee. Lena cracked the door open. A professional-looking woman in her 40s stood there with a tray, coffee, pastries, a warm smile. Thank you, Lena said, taking the tray. He really cares about you, Jennifer said. I've worked for Mr. Russo 8 years. Never seen him like this. Like what? Protective. Almost. Soft, Jennifer smiled. It's good. He deserves happiness. After she left, Lena tried the coffee. It was perfect, exactly how she liked it, which meant Damien had noticed. Had paid attention to details she didn't realize he'd seen. Conference room, 2 floors down. Damien sat at the head of a long table surrounded by 8 men, city councilmen, union leaders, his own executives. All carefully chosen allies who understood the real game being played beneath Chicago's legitimate surface. The headlines are problematic, Councilman Morrison said, sliding a tablet across the table. This woman, this relationship, it's attracting attention we don't need. My personal life is my concern. Not when it affects our business partnerships, this from Frank Delgado, the union rep Derek had mentioned. Vince Moretti called me this morning. Says the truce is in jeopardy because you're distracted. Says maybe we should reconsider our loyalties. Damien's eyes went cold. Did he? He's using your girlfriend as leverage, Morrison continued, suggesting that a man controlled by emotions isn't a man we can trust with million-dollar contracts and political cover. I'm not controlled by anything. Then prove it, Delgado challenged. Send the girl away. Show Vince and everyone else that business comes first. The room went silent. Every man there watched Damien, waiting to see which way he'd break. No, Damien said simply. Boss. Marco, standing by the wall, shifted uncomfortably. I claimed her publicly. Backing down now shows weakness, not strength. It tells every rival that they can manipulate me by threatening people I care about. Damien leaned forward. Lena stays. Anyone who has a problem with that can find new business partners. I hear Vince is always recruiting. The threat was clear. Morrison and Delgado exchanged glances. Fine, Morrison said finally. But if this situation escalates, if Vince breaks the truce, let him. I've been preparing for that possibility since the day we signed, Damien stood. Meeting adjourned. As the men filed out, Marco approached. Boss, Rico just called. He's got confirmation. Derek and Vince are planning something big.
Tomorrow.
They're going to make a move. On what? On Lena. Derek wants her back. Vince wants you destabilized. They're working together now. Damien's phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer in HR. The coffee I delivered? Miss Martinez didn't order it. Someone else did. His blood turned to ice. Get to my office.
Now.
They ran for the elevator, but Damien already knew they'd be too late. The coffee. The mysterious delivery. It had been a distraction. And while he'd been in his meeting, proving he wasn't distracted by Lena, someone had made their move. The elevator couldn't climb fast enough. The elevator doors opened. Damien burst into his office, Marco and 2 guards behind him, weapons drawn. Lena stood by the window, coffee cup in hand, alive and unharmed. She spun around at their entrance, eyes wide. What? Damien crossed the room in 3 strides, taking the cup from her hand and sniffing it. Nothing. He tasted a drop.
Just coffee.
False alarm, Marco said, lowering his weapon. Jennifer really did send coffee. Then why did she text that she didn't? Damien's mind raced. His phone rang, Jennifer herself. Mr. Russo, I'm so sorry. I meant to say, I wasn't the one who ordered the coffee delivery to your office. Someone called the cafe directly, used your name and credit card. I just brought it up because they asked me to. I didn't realize, should I not have? A diversion. The coffee was a distraction to get his security scrambling, to make him think the threat was here. Which meant the real threat was somewhere else. Where's Isabella? Damien asked, his voice deadly calm. Lena frowned. At school, isn't she? Marco's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his face drained of color. Boss. Isabella's therapy appointment. The language center downtown. Mrs. Chin took her right after school.
Call them. Now.
But Damien already knew what Marco would find. This was the play, create chaos at his office, distract his security, then hit where he was vulnerable. Not Lena in his fortress of a building. Isabella. His niece. His weakness. The bridge. 4:47 p.m. The language therapy center sat in a converted brownstone near the river, where Isabella spent 2 afternoons a week working with specialists. Mrs. Chin had picked her up at 3:30, along with 2 of Damien's bodyguards, standard protocol. They were crossing the Wabash Avenue Bridge, when the first car struck. A black sedan slammed into the SUV's rear quarter panel, sending it spinning. Mrs. Chun screamed. One bodyguard shouted into his radio, while the other drew his weapon. But they'd been herded into a kill box. A second vehicle blocked the front, and a van screeched to a halt beside them. Men poured out, 6 of them, moving with military precision. The bodyguards fired, but they were outgunned. One went down immediately, blood blooming across his chest. The second managed to kill one attacker before a bullet caught him in the shoulder. Isabella sat frozen in the back seat, her silent world suddenly full of violence she couldn't hear but could see in vivid, terrifying color. Mrs. Chun fumbled with her seatbelt. "Run, Isabella. Run." The van's side door opened. Derek stood there, his face twisted with triumph and rage. Behind him, 2 of Vince's men waited with weapons drawn. "Lena!" Derek shouted, yanking open the SUV's door. Then his face fell. Not Lena. Just a terrified child and an old woman. "Wrong car," one of Vince's men said. "The intel said." "I know what the intel said." Derek's hands shook. "Rico said she'd be here. With the kid. Going to therapy?" Isabella kicked, her small foot connecting with Derek's shin. He grabbed her arm, but she twisted away with surprising agility, bolting from the car. "Grab her." Derek lunged, but Isabella was already running, her school backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "Forget the kid," Vince's man ordered. "She's not the target. We regroup. Find the girl." "No." Derek's voice turned vicious. "If we can't get Lena, we take something Russo cares about. Grab the old woman." They dragged Mrs. Chun from the car, her screams cutting through the traffic noise. Other cars had stopped, drivers pulling out phones, filming. Chicago's rush hour made for plenty of witnesses. "Move." Derek shoved Mrs. Chun into the van. Before the cops. Sirens wailed in the distance. The attackers piled into their vehicles and scattered, leaving behind 2 dead bodyguards, a wrecked SUV, and 30 witnesses recording everything. Isabella ran until her lungs burned, her silent world narrowing to pure survival instinct. She knew these streets. The therapy center was only 6 blocks from Uncle Damien's office. She could make it. She had to. Damien's office, 5:03 p.m. The door burst open. A security guard carried Isabella inside, the little girl's face streaked with tears, her dress torn. She saw Damien and launched herself at him, her small body trembling. His arms wrapped around her automatically, his mind going cold and lethal. What happened? Isabella's hands shook as she signed, her movements frantic and disjointed. Men. Bad men. They crashed the car. Shot Michael and Tony. Took Mrs. Chun. They wanted Lena, but she wasn't there, so they took Mrs. Chun instead. "Slow down." Damien's voice stayed calm, even as rage built in his chest. "Who took Mrs. Chun?" "The angry man from the restaurant."
Derek.
"And other men. They said something about Rico. Said Rico told them where to find us." Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. Rico. His second in command. The man he trusted for 12 years had fed Derek and Vince the information they needed. Had told them about Isabella's therapy schedule, about Mrs. Chen's route back. They'd wanted Lena, but when she wasn't there, they'd taken Mrs. Chun as leverage. Marco appeared, phone pressed to his ear. "Boss, we've got confirmation. Bridge attack. 2 of our guys dead. Witnesses say Derek Martinez was there, along with known Moretti soldiers. They grabbed Mrs. Chun and scattered. We're tracking the vehicles now." Damien's arms tightened around Isabella. The little girl who'd lost her parents, her hearing, who'd finally started to feel safe again. She'd just watched men die and her caretaker kidnapped. Because of him. Because he'd claimed Lena. Because he'd made her a target. Lena stood frozen by the window, her face white. "This is my fault." "No," Damien's voice was ice. "This is Rico's fault. And Derek's. And Vince's." He set Isabella down gently, signing to her. "Stay with Marco. I'm going to fix this." Be careful, Isabella signed back, her eyes huge. He turned to Lena. They wanted you. This was about getting to me through you. Then let them have me. Mrs. Chun is innocent. Isabella could have been killed. Which is exactly why I'm ending this tonight. He pulled out his phone, sent a single text. Within seconds, his phone rang. Russo, Vince's voice was smooth, amused. I hear you had some excitement this afternoon. You have something that belongs to me. Do I? I think you have something that belongs to Derek Martinez. How about a trade? Name the place. The old waterfront warehouse. Pier 17. You know the one. Used to be yours until that little territory dispute last year. Vince's smile was audible. Come alone, bring the girl. We'll make an exchange. Mrs. Chun for Lena. Everyone goes home happy. I'm not bringing Lena into your trap. Then Mrs. Chun dies, and we come for Isabella next. Your choice, Damien. The woman you've known for 3 days, or the people you actually care about. The line went dead. Damien stood perfectly still, his mind calculating angles, odds, survival rates. Then he looked at Lena, at Isabella, at Marco. Call everyone, he said quietly. Every soldier, every asset. We're going to war. I'm going with you. Damien didn't even look up from the tactical map spread across his desk. No. Mrs. Chun was taken because of me. Isabella almost died because of me. Lena's voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. I'm not hiding while other people pay for my mistakes. This isn't a negotiation. Damien's finger traced routes on the map. Approach vectors, exit strategies, kill zones. 20 of his men filled the office, checking weapons, coordinating over radio headsets. You stay here with Isabella and Marco. Vince wants me. If I don't show up, he kills Mrs. Chun and comes after Isabella anyway. You know it. I know it. Lena moved closer, forcing him to look at her. Let me help end this. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. He'd seen that same stubborn determination in himself. If you come, you follow my orders exactly. No heroics, no improvisation. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. I don't want to watch you die tonight. Then don't let me. Pier 17 to 9:47 p.m. Fog rolled off the river like a living thing, thick and cold, swallowing the abandoned warehouse in gray. The structure loomed from the mist, rusted corrugated metal, broken windows, shipping cranes jutting into the night sky like skeletal fingers. This had been Russo territory once, until a turf war 6 months ago had pushed the boundaries. Now it sat in disputed space, perfect for what Vince intended, deniable, isolated, far from help. Damien's SUV rolled to a stop 50 yards from the warehouse entrance. Behind them, hidden in the fog, his soldiers moved into position. Rooftops, alleyways, the water itself. 20 men with one objective: get Mrs. Chun and Lena out alive, and make Vince Moretti regret this play. Last chance to stay in the car, Damien said. Lena opened her door. Let's go. They walked together across broken concrete, their footsteps echoing. The warehouse door stood open, light spilling from inside. An invitation. A trap. Derek appeared in the doorway, flanked by 2 of Vince's soldiers. His eyes locked on Lena with an intensity that made her skin crawl. There she is. His voice was thick with whiskey and vindication. My girl. Coming back where she belongs. I don't belong to you, Lena said. I never did. We'll see about that. Derek descended the steps. Mr. Moretti wants to see you both. Brought the old lady, just like promised. They entered the warehouse, a cavernous space filled with rusted shipping containers, catwalks overhead, the smell of oil and river water. Floodlights cast harsh shadows. 20 men waited inside, all armed, all watching. Vince stood on a raised platform near the back, Mrs. Chun bound to a chair beside him. The housekeeper's face was bruised, but her eyes were defiant. Damien Russo. Vince spread his arms like a gracious host. Welcome to neutral ground. There's nothing neutral about this, Vince. You kidnapped my employee, shot my men, terrorized my niece. Damien's voice was deadly calm. That's an act of war.
That's business.
You have something I want leverage over you. Your weakness. Vince gestured to Lena. Now we make a trade. The girl for your housekeeper. Everyone walks away. The truce continues. Except you and I both know the truce ended the moment you ordered this attack. Vince smiled. Perhaps. But this way you get your people back. Derek gets his girlfriend. I get the satisfaction of proving that Damien Russo can be bent. Everybody wins. I'm not his girlfriend, Lena said loudly. And I'm not going anywhere with Derek. Derek moved fast, grabbing her arm and twisting it behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder. You don't get a choice, babe. Mr. Moretti's been very generous. I get you back, I get a promotion, and I get to remind you exactly who's in charge. You're going to hurt her? Damien's voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. That's your play. She needs to learn respect. The first shot came from the darkness outside, a sniper's bullet that took down the guard nearest the door. Then chaos erupted. Damien's men poured in from every entrance, doors, windows, even dropping from the catwalks where they'd infiltrated during the conversation. Gunfire exploded through the warehouse, muzzle flashes strobing in the fog. Derek shoved Lena toward a shipping container, using her as a shield. She stumbled, hit the metal wall hard, and felt him press against her back, his gun to her ribs. Move and I'll shoot, he hissed. But Derek had made a critical mistake. He'd grabbed her, threatened her, hurt her for the last time. And Lena had spent 2 years learning his patterns, his weaknesses. She'd also spent the car ride here having Marco teach her a few moves. Lena dropped her weight suddenly, becoming dead weight in Derek's grip. He stumbled, his hold loosening. She drove her elbow back into his solar plexus, exactly where Marco had shown her. Derek gasped, and she spun, bringing her knee up between his legs with everything she had.
He went down.
She grabbed his gun, hands shaking but determined, and pointed it at him. Lena, don't. Mrs. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. But Lena wasn't listening. She stared at Derek writhing on the ground, this man who'd terrorized her for years, who'd made her afraid to exist. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Then Damien was there, his hand gently covering hers, lowering the weapon. Not like this, he said quietly.
Not you.
Let me. Around them, the fight was ending. Vince's men were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Damien's soldiers had turned the ambush around. Bodies littered the floor. Vince himself was on his knees, 3 guns pointed at his head. You set up a trap and walked right into mine, Damien said, his arm wrapping around Lena's waist. Did you really think I'd come unprepared? Vince spat blood. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Damien signaled, and his men began zip-tying prisoners. The truce is broken. You tried to take what's mine. And now you're going to spend a very long time regretting it. Marco cut Mrs. Chen's bonds. The housekeeper rushed to Lena, pulling her into a fierce hug. Derek struggled to his knees, his face purple with rage and pain. Lena, please. I love you. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. Lena's voice was steady now, stronger than she'd ever felt. You never loved me. You loved controlling me. But I'm done being controlled. She turned to Damien. What happens to him? Damien studied Derek with the cold assessment of a predator deciding if prey was worth eating. That's up to you. Lena looked at Derek, really looked at him. This man who'd stolen years of her life, who'd made her afraid of her own shadow. She felt nothing. No love, no hate. Just a distant pity for someone so broken they could only feel powerful by breaking others. Let the police have him, she said. He's got warrants. Assault, stalking, filing false reports. Let the system handle him. Merciful, Damien observed. Practical. He's not worth your time or mine. Damien smiled, genuinely smiled, and Lena felt something shift between them. She wasn't a victim he'd saved. She was a partner who'd fought beside him. As sirens wailed in the distance and Damien's men secured the scene, Lena realized something. She'd finally stopped running. 4 days later, Damien's estate. The estate felt different now. quieter, somehow, despite nothing physical having changed. Lena stood at the window of what had become her room, no longer the guest room, just hers, watching dawn break over the manicured lawns. For days since the warehouse. For days since she'd held a gun on Derek and chosen mercy over vengeance. For days since everything had changed. A knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Damien entered, carrying 2 coffee cups. He'd been doing that lately, bringing her morning coffee, staying for conversation that had nothing to do with threats or danger.
Just talking.
"Couldn't sleep?" he asked, handing her a cup. Too much thinking, she accepted it gratefully. "What happened to Derek?" "Chicago PD has him on 6 charges. Alex Martinez, his cousin, the dirty cop, turned state's witness to save his own skin. Between his testimony and the warehouse raid, Derek's looking at 15 to 20-inch." Damien's expression was neutral. "You still okay with that decision? Letting him live?" Lena sipped her coffee.
Yes.
"He's not worth having his blood on my conscience. Prison will break him worse than a bullet would have." Smart and merciful. Dangerous combination. "I learned from someone who's smart and merciless." His mouth quirked.
Touché?
They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. So different from 4 nights ago. The warehouse darkness, the gunfire, the fear. "What about Vince?"
Lena asked. Ah.
"That's more interesting." Damien's eyes gleamed with something predatory. "Vince is finished in Chicago. His attack on my family violated every code we operate under. The other families? They've withdrawn their support. No one wants to align with a man who can't even execute an ambush properly. So the truce is irrelevant now. I control the port, the construction unions, the distribution networks. Everything Vince wanted I have. And he's retreating to Milwaukee with what's left of his operation." Damien set down his cup. "Your presence didn't weaken me, Lena. It forced everyone's hand, separated the loyal from the treacherous, made me stronger." "And Rico?" Damien's expression hardened. "Being handled today."
I wanted you to see it.
The study, 9 a.m. Rico stood in Damien's study, flanked by 2 guards. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The man who'd been second in command for 12 years was now just another traitor. Lena entered with Damien, and Rico's eyes flicked to her with something like regret. "I want her to hear this," Damien said, settling behind his desk. "Your confession. Everything." Rico swallowed hard. "Boss, I never meant." "You contacted Derek Martinez 3 times. Gave him information about our operations, about Isabella's schedule, about Lena's movements." Damien's voice was clinical, detached. "You did this because you thought she was making me weak, distracted. Did I get that right?" "I was protecting the family. You were protecting your position." Damien leaned forward. "You saw someone getting close to me and panicked, afraid you'd lose your place at my side." Rico's silence confirmed it. "The irony," Damien continued, "is that your betrayal proved exactly what I'd been trying to tell you. Loyalty isn't about blind obedience. It's about trust. And you broke mine. I've given you 12 years. Which is the only reason you're still breathing." Damien stood. "Here's what happens next. You leave Chicago tonight. No money, no connections, no family protection. You tell anyone who asks that you retired. You never speak my name, Lena's name, or Isabella's name again. You disappear completely. And if I refuse, then we have a very different conversation. One that ends with you in the river." Rico's face went white. He looked at Lena as if she might intercede, but she met his gaze with cold clarity. "You put a 10-year-old girl in danger because of your ego," she said quietly. "You're lucky Damien's letting you walk away." Rico was escorted out by the guards. Lena watched him go, then turned to Damien. "You could have killed him. I could have. Part of me wanted to." Damien poured whiskey despite the early hour. "But death is easy. Living with the knowledge that he destroyed everything he'd built? That's a longer punishment. You're more merciful than people think." "Don't mistake calculated pragmatism for mercy," but his eyes softened. "Though perhaps you're rubbing off on me." Marco entered, tablet in hand. Boss, the city council just approved the port expansion contracts. Unanimous vote. The union reps confirmed all our people are secure in their positions. And Councilman Morrison called personally to congratulate you on resolving your recent difficulties. Translation: they're all falling in line now that Vince is finished, Damien said. Exactly. You're stronger politically than you've been in years, Marco glanced at Lena. The headlines are helping too. Russo protects family in warehouse raid. You look like a hero instead of a mobster. I'm both, Damien said dryly. Anything else? Mrs. Chin wants to know if Miss Martinez will be staying permanently. Something about redecorating her room properly, if she is. The question hung in the air. Lena felt Damien's eyes on her, waiting. I don't know, she said honestly. This whole thing started because I was running from Derek. Now he's in prison. Vince is gone. Rico's exiled. The danger's over. I don't have a reason to stay anymore. Don't you? Damien's voice was quiet but intense. Before she could answer, Isabella burst into the room, her backpack bouncing. She ran straight to Lena, signing excitedly. Guess what? My science project won second place. And my teacher said my presentation in ASL was the best she'd ever seen because you helped me practice. Lena's throat tightened. She signed back, I'm so proud of you. Are you staying? Isabella's hands slowed, becoming more hesitant. Uncle Damien said maybe you'd leave now that the bad men are gone.
But you promised you'd stay.
Remember? Lena looked at this little girl who'd lost so much, at the man who'd risked everything to protect her, at the strange, dangerous, beautiful life she'd stumbled into 4 days ago. She'd come here running from something. Maybe it was time to stay for something instead. Tell Mrs. Chun, Lena said to Marco, her eyes still on Damien, that yes, she should redecorate my room properly. Isabella's face lit up like the sun. And Damien smiled, not the cold, calculating smile of a Mafia boss, but something real and warm and human. Good, was all he said. But it was enough. 3 weeks later, rooftop garden, sunset. The rooftop garden was Lena's favorite discovery, a hidden oasis atop the estate that few people knew existed. Damien's mother had planted it years ago, before she passed, and it had been maintained but rarely visited. Now, as October gave way to November, the last chrysanthemums bloomed in bursts of gold and rust. Lena spread a blanket on the stone tiles while Isabella unpacked her telescope, chattering excitedly in sign. Venus should be visible tonight. And if we're lucky, we might see Jupiter too. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons? I did not know that, Lena signed back, smiling. You'll have to show me. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting Chicago's skyline in shades of amber and rose. From up here, the city looked peaceful, beautiful even. Hard to believe that 3 weeks ago, she'd been running through those streets, terrified and alone. Now she stood on a rooftop, helping a 10-year-old set up a telescope in a home that had somehow become hers. Life was strange. Isabella peered through the telescope, adjusting the focus. There. That bright one. That's Venus. Lena looked, seeing the brilliant point of light, and felt something shift in her chest. Wonder, maybe. Or peace. She'd spent so long looking down, watching for threats, that she'd forgotten to look up. Can I show you something? Isabella's hands moved shyly. Of course. Uncle Damien taught me some new signs. For feelings I didn't have words for before. Isabella's hands moved slowly, deliberately. This one means safe, and this one means home, and this one. She made a gesture, hands over heart, then opening outward. What's that one? Family, Isabella signed. Not the family you're born with. The family you choose. Lena's eyes burned. Oh, sweetheart. Isabella threw her arms around Lena's waist, and Lena held her tight, this brave little girl who'd endured so much loss yet still had the courage to love again. You two make quite the picture. Damien's voice came from the rooftop access door. He emerged into the fading light, Jacket discarded, tie loosened, looking more relaxed than Lena had ever seen him. In his hands, he carried a tray with hot chocolate and cookies. Mrs. Chun insisted, he said, setting it down. Said watching stars requires proper provisions. Uncle Damien. Isabella released Lena and ran to him. Come see Venus. It's so bright tonight. He let her drag him to the telescope, his movements careful, indulgent. When he looked through the eyepiece, something softened in his expression. Beautiful, he murmured. Then his hands moved, still clumsy but improving. Thank you for showing me. Isabella beamed. Damien straightened and found Lena watching him. What? You're getting better at signing. I have a good teacher. He moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. And motivation. They stood together as Isabella returned to her telescope, mapping constellations with the focused intensity only children possess. The city stretched below them, vast and complicated and full of darkness and light in equal measure. I talked to a lawyer yesterday, Lena said quietly. About my situation. Restraining orders, court dates, making sure Derek stays away even after he gets out. Good. You should protect yourself legally, Damien paused. I also have lawyers who can help if you want. I know, but I need to do some things myself. Stand on my own feet, she glanced at him. Even if those feet are currently standing on your rooftop. Our rooftop, he corrected. This is your home now, Lena. For as long as you want it to be. And what about this? She gestured between them. What we are. Damien was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the darkening sky. 3 weeks ago, you slid under my table and asked me to pretend you were mine. I said yes because it was strategically useful. Because it gave me leverage in a negotiation. I remember. But somewhere between that restaurant and this rooftop, it stopped being pretend. He turned to face her fully. You're not my possession, Lena. You're not a strategic asset or a political move. You're... what? Someone who sees me. Not the boss. Not the monster everyone thinks I am. Just... me. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. Someone who brought light into a house that had forgotten what light looked like. Lena's breath caught. Damien. I'm not good at this, he continued, his voice rough. I don't do relationships or feelings or any of the normal things normal people do. But with you, I want to try. If you'll let me. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 weeks ago, running, hiding, afraid of her own shadow. Then she thought about who she'd become, someone who'd stared down her abuser, fought beside a Mafia boss, chosen mercy and strength in equal measure. I'm not running anymore, she said. Not from Derek, not from this, not from you. Good, his smile was small but genuine. Because I'm not letting you go. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. And maybe she was. Maybe they both were, two broken people who'd found each other in the chaos and decided to build something new. Are you two kissing? Isabella's sign question made them break apart, laughing. Maybe Lena signed back. Good. Isabella replied matter-of-factly. You make Uncle Damien smile. He never smiled before. She's not wrong, Damien admitted. They settled on the blanket together, the three of them forming an unlikely constellation of their own. Isabella pointed out stars, Damien attempted to sign their names, and Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The city sprawled below them, full of danger and darkness, of enemies and threats. But up here, in this garden beneath the emerging stars, they were safe. They were whole. They were family. And Lena realized that sometimes the best things in life start with the most desperate moments. Sometimes hiding under a stranger's table leads to finding home. Sometimes the man everyone fears is the one who teaches you how to be brave. Sometimes love finds you when you're not even looking for it. The stars emerged one by one, filling the sky with light. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena looked up instead of down. The view was spectacular.